All right, let's get it right this time. People are counting on me. Mac Engel, Fort Worth Star Telegram, Engel Podcast, here with a story to tell you what it's like to interview a big-time Hollywood movie star. I had a chance recently to interview Kevin Costner. So I'm going to tell you about that, as well as give you an honest review of his new movie, Horizon: An American Saga, which hits theaters this week. So over the course of my illustrious career, I've had the opportunity to interview a handful of actors, actresses, movie stars, some musicians in there. Vince Gill. Recently I had a chance to talk to the founder of the Doobie Brothers, Patrick Simmons. That was fun. Miranda Lambert, chatted with her. Let's see, who else? Jane Fonda. That was an interesting conversation. She was great. Dermot Mulroney. He was a very nice guy. Jeremy Piven. That was interesting. On and on. So back in, it's a detail to my professional life that I don't take for granted. And it's something that I very much appreciate, because when I was younger, this was something I wanted to do outside of just basketball, football, baseball, hockey, and all kinds of other sports. I wanted to do different things in journalism. Now, they're all under kind of the umbrella of entertainment, but they're different. And I will say that interviewing, let's say, Dak Prescott after a Cowboys game, or Tony Romo, or somebody like that, there's a much different protocol, rhyme, and rhythm to interviewing a celebrity who is promoting a brand, or a movie, or an album, or a television show. They get to dictate the rules, basically. And it hasn't always been that way, but certainly with the creation of social media, it's become more so. So back in January, February, I got an email that said, do you want to watch the new trailer for Horizon, as well as participate in a virtual press conference with Kevin Costner, moderated by somebody else? You can submit a question and they may take it. Sure, why not? I did it. It was fine. A few months later, I get an email that says, you have been selected to interview Kevin Costner if you want it. Absolutely. Now, there was a provision or a stipulation on that email which said, if you want to interview him, no questions about his personal life, fine, makes sense, and no questions about any other project, which to me said he didn't want to take anything about clearly the television show that kept him relevant in a way that, just like he was, let's say, in the 80s or 90s when he was really big, and that is his involvement on the Taylor Sheridan show Yellowstone. It's like, okay, sure, that's fine. So one of the rules about interviewing these guys is that you have to go see the movie or watch the show they're participating in before you interview them. It's no problem. So the day before I'm supposed to interview Kevin Costner, there are 8 of us at a movie theater, at a big regular movie theater, and it's only 8 of us, who are going to be interviewing Costner the next day, because Costner was on a nationwide tour of flooding the airwaves with interviews to talk about himself, his career, and Horizon. It's part of the gig. And he gets it. I go see the movie, I have my own ideas, and then the next day I'm at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Las Colinas in Irving, Texas, waiting to interview him. I've got a list of questions as I sit there and chit-chat with other members of the media. Some are on radio and some are on television, and then there's me, the lowly print guy. Now here's the ironic part. All of these interviews, their time slots are predetermined based on pretty much where you work. What kind of outlet are you? A radio station, they might get Kevin Costner in this particular setting for 6 or 7 minutes, because radio segments are slotted by advertising. Those segments are usually from 12 to 15 minutes. So you do a setup, you interview Kevin Costner, he leaves, you close it out. Television, kind of the same way. Now, it all depends on the type of television show, but if it's a morning show or something like that, those guys get them for 5 or 6 minutes. Me, a lowly dinosauric print guy, gets Kevin Costner for 20 minutes. That is an eternity. Now, the one rule about these interviews is that when they say 5 minutes, they mean 5 minutes. If they say 10, they mean 10. If they say 15, they mean 15. And that's it. There's no 15 becomes 20 or 20 becomes 30. It's you're done. So I had a list of questions prepared, and the other reporter who was interviewing before me, who also had a 20-minute segment, walks out and says, hey, just a heads up, when you talk to him, have your next question ready to go, like that, because he doesn't just fill in the empty space, which is a great trick if you're in my job, which is if you can lay out, the person usually across from you will fill in that awkward silence with more words. And sometimes they might tell you something really interesting. Kevin Costner has been doing this since about 1985, and he knows better. He's going to stay on point. So I walk in the room. It's a bar that they've reserved, and they've kind of dressed it up. It's empty. It's just him. There's a PR person, and there's a bunch of posters for the new movie Horizon. He's sitting in a recliner, and I shake his hand. He doesn't get up, and he says, please excuse me, I can't get up. I've got all these wires and microphones attached to me. No big deal. And I do something with him that I do occasionally in these interviews, which is to tell the person, just a heads up, I normally cover sports, but occasionally I delve into entertainment from time to time. So I might ask you something a little bit different. And sometimes, my real hope is sometimes that person will say, sports, really? And they might want to talk about it, and I'll go down an avenue that they weren't prepared for, and they might have some fun with it. Aaron Sorkin, the screenwriter, did it with me. Usually that was probably the only one that I can think of where it really worked. I tried with Kevin Hart, but Kevin was pretty much on point that day. I had a chance to talk to him. So Kevin Costner says, oh, that's great, that's interesting. I'll do my best to answer your questions. He's very nice, he's very polite, and he's a pro. Now in this interview, I did ask him something where I made a mistake. Not huge. So in my preparation for the interview, I figured out that he had never done a sequel until this project, which will be a 4-part series. Never had Kevin Costner done a sequel. And I asked him if that was by design. He says, no, not really. And he says, I was going to do The Bodyguard 2 with Princess Diana. And immediately the little siren went off my head. That's amazing. I don't think I'd heard that. Now, here's where I screwed up. I've got all these questions, and what I should have done was ask him a follow-up question to tell me more about the Princess Diana involvement with A Bodyguard 2, because I had never heard that. But I didn't, because I thought, well, maybe this is common knowledge, and because that movie has been so far out of circulation, it was something that had been talked about before, and I don't want to waste a question on a little piece of, on a little anecdote that's already been in circulation for some time. So I didn't. The funny part is, about 2 weeks later when he was doing interviews, somebody did ask him, which means one of two things. They either stumbled into that question or they saw the interview where he said it to me and they followed up with it, with him. That interview was picked up by quite a few outlets. So there's that possibility, or I might be giving myself too much credit. So as the interview winds down, I can tell by looking at my phone, because I'm recording it, how much time I've got left. And I'm constantly looking down on it, seeing if I'm going to get through all the questions. And sure enough, there's a media professional, PR person standing behind him by 10 or 15 feet, and she gives me this. I ask him one more question, I thank him profusely, and that was the interview. So what's it like to interview Kevin Costner? He was a pro. He was engaged, he was polite, he was well-spoken, and from my end, that's all you need. Now, here's where the movie review, I did something with him. I didn't expect to do it, because he asked me the question, I don't know what your experience was like with the film. This is a conversation, and as you get older in this job, you can converse a little bit better than it's just a strict Q&A. And I said, well, it made me curious. Because one thing about the promotional interviews that actors and actresses and directors do is that a lot of times they may have to come out and do these interviews and sell a movie that they know is a dud. You ever notice that? You ever notice that all these guys, when they come out and they do these interviews on Jimmy Kimmel or Stephen Colbert, and they were really excited about this new movie, and it could be a total dog. And I'd always wanted to ask that question. And one time I did, of Dermot Mulroney, who was promoting the movie The Grey that starred Liam Neeson. Now, in defense of that movie and Neeson and Dermot Mulroney, the movie was pretty good. I enjoyed it. So I asked Mulroney that question, and he kind of laughed, and he said, well, usually in those instances, you find something about the director or the script or the experience that you really like, and you just focus on that. Because invariably, you're going to be promoting a movie that you know is a loser. And he said, Mulroney said, what I have found is typically it's the journalists who have a hard time navigating around asking about a movie that they've seen that they know is going to be a dud. So in this case, as I'm watching Horizon and thinking about what I'm going to ask Costner, by the end of it, I'm like, okay, this is pretty good. It's not that good. So when he asked me, I have two routes to go. I can say, oh, it's amazing. It's get 1,000 Academy Awards. Or I can be honest and just tell him, it made me curious. It did. That's what Horizon Chapter 1, Horizon American Saga Chapter 1 did for me as a consumer, as a viewer. If you like Westerns, if you like Kevin Costner, if you like big Hollywood movies, it will make you curious. Because what this 3-hour movie is more or less a setup for Chapter 2. Nothing has really happened in Chapter 1, but there's just enough that I think it will make you say, okay, I'll go see Chapter 2. And at the end of the interview, I said, good luck with the movie. And he said, I hope you go see Chapter 2. I said, oh, don't worry, I will. You got my money. So that's what it's like interviewing Kevin Costner. He's just one professional talking to another professional. And if you're interested, go see Horizon, because I think it will make you curious.